Hello, welcome to the Empowered Marriage Podcast. My name is Helen Harrison from Power of Change Counselling and Coaching. I'm a relationship and personal growth specialist, and the Empowered Marriage is it's a podcast that has been going for some time now, but it's all about relationships, love, and marriage. And today is podcast 131. Are you loving your partner or your wounds? You're probably thinking, Helen, why are you talking about that? This podcast, I want it to help you recognise how childhood patterns or unresolved wounds, they influence your relationship today in such a massive way. And they can create a relationship for it to really begin to unravel. So I want to talk about the family roles and the relationship patterns that can occur in relationships. And then I'm going to give a couple of examples. Are you living with a man-child? Or perhaps you are in a relationship where, it's almost like a father figure and like a pleasing type teenager position. As odd as that sounds, it's a really great way to understand the patterns that happen in a relationship. Now, what are patterns? Let's bring it right back to right back to basics. So when we're little people, we adjust to receive love. Very unconscious. We don't even realise we're doing it, and we take on roles. And look, I'm from an interesting family. I've got 9 siblings. 7 of us were adopted. My adopted parents had 3 of their own. So there were many different dynamics going on. They do say that you can have a different perspective. Every single kid has a different perspective of the family that they were raised in. And so I'm going to talk about some of the most common roles that happen in families, which then you may be playing out very unconsciously in your adult relationship. And if you are playing any of these roles out, it's not attractive. A lot of it isn't attractive. And it's really difficult if you're in an intimate relationship and you're living with a man-child. That's not a turn on, is it? Or perhaps you're the male in the relationship and you come from a place of like grandiosity, the one up, and you're not an equal, and you know that you get angry. And you get aggressive and annoyed, but you're not sure why and you're not sure how to shift it. Well, I encourage you to stay with me and you might learn something. So, family roles and relationship patterns occur because they do. Very, very unconsciously. They're roles that you've taken on to help you survive childhood. Look, for some of us, not the most ideal childhood upbringing, and so you adapted, often quite unconsciously. So I'm going to list a few, and let's look at the hero child. Now, a hero child is someone who needed to perform. They couldn't actually be themselves, and they're responsible, they're capable, they're dependable, often a high achiever. So that was the family role. But the challenges you're going to have in an adult relationship are that you are going to overfunction and you are going to struggle to receive support because you're so used to sort of doing it on your own, and you find vulnerability really difficult. So if you're a hero child and you're in a relationship, it's really hard to get closeness and intimacy and connection. And again, I don't want to shame any of these things I'm talking about. This is what you did to adapt. And meaning you put parts of you away and you adapted to be able to cope with your upbringing. Look, for me, I was a pleaser and a peacemaker. And if everyone is happy, then I'm okay. But if everyone isn't happy, I'm not okay. So it was very much being very thoughtful, generous, overgiving, always about everybody else. It's never about yourself. And so how does that show up in a relationship? You are a people pleaser. You're quite weak. You find it difficult to say no, to put in boundaries, and you self-sacrifice. And I know this well. I know the people pleaser and the peacemaker very well. And so having these relationship challenges, not great. Again, it's very, very hard to have intimacy and closeness when you are playing this role. And look, I'm out of a 30-year marriage and I played this role for a large part of that marriage. And I'll talk a bit more about being the one down and the people pleasing. And yeah, it's not helpful. If something I see is caretakers, or another way to put it is parentified. And what that is, it is my job to look after everyone. Often you looked after a parent. You were the decision maker. You were mature. You were responsible. You weren't being a kid. You weren't playing. You weren't, being silly. You were responsible. What happens, though, in your adult relationship is you rescue everyone. And, it's so exhausting. You struggle with boundaries. You struggle in saying no. You go through bouts of burnout because you just take on too much. This is what you've done, and not helpful. So you're getting the idea of this. Is one other, which I really do want to talk about. This is the lost child. This is the one who's forgotten. Perhaps you were the firstborn, and then the second one who was born needed a lot of attention, and you just sort of got lost. There was no one there to nurture you. You just kept a lot inside. You were independent. You were adaptable, but it was lonely for you, and you also learned it's safer not to need anyone. So when you get into an adult relationship, for you to be vulnerable, like God forbid, you find that really, really difficult. You withdraw, you emotionally avoid because you could feel rejected and feel abandoned. And you avoid asking for help. You avoid intimacy. It's very hard to get close. So look, you may have landed on one of those. There are many more. They are, I suppose, the strong ones that I see a lot in my room. But in an intimate relationship, if you don't understand how you play this out, it's not going to help you in your relationship, because you're going to become an adapted child in your relationship. So all of these patterns and these behaviours that you created when you were younger, which were ideal, you needed to receive love. This is what you did. You adapted and to receive love. Whereas in your adult relationship, if you play this out now, it's not going to be helpful at all. And again, all of this is wounds. This is the wounded part of you. So I want to talk about, really speak into a couple of these in a little bit more detail. So are you living with a man-child? I hear that a lot. I'm living with a man-child. So what it is, the female or the woman's position is that she's like a mum to her husband or to her partner. She organises, she manages, she reminds, she takes responsibility. I hear this a lot. I'm always taking on the mental load and I am exhausted. And you're just feeling responsible for everyone. And if I don't do it, it won't get done. So this is that you didn't start the relationship like this, but this is what has started to happen. And then for the male in the relationship, and we call this in Terry Reel's work, the one down. So the woman is the one up and often boundaryless, meaning you often don't have boundaries. You're just doing it all. And when you get triggered, when you're in this role, you can be quite controlling, you can be quite attacking, you can be quite hurtful. You become a bit like a naggy mother. And then the male who is in the one down boundaryless, meaning you have been a pleaser and you're stuck in that. You avoid responsibility. You get really defensive. So when your one-up wife or partner is asking or telling you what to do and she has a tone or a look or even just the speed of her voice that can activate you and you become really defensive, you withdraw, you procrastinate, you often can rebel against what your partner's saying. But a huge thing is you feel criticised and you feel controlled, and you're not a team because you just wait for your partner to do it. So this is a pattern that begins feeding itself, and it's a nasty pattern. It's one of the most common patterns that I see. So by the time couples are seeing me, there's they're flatmates. They're often in different bedrooms. They're not really talking. They've often got kids and they're just getting on with it. So what's happening here? They're not relating as two equal adults. They've adapted. They're both in their adapted child, the pattern that you created when you were younger. And the idea is you need to look underneath the pattern. So what were the childhood experiences or the emotional wounds that might be sitting underneath each of these persons' positions? But when a pattern starts taking hold, it starts going into who's right and who's wrong. You don't see the pattern. You got blind spots, both of you. And it's really interesting when I watch it. I can see within minutes of a couple when they are, in the, we'll call it the mother and son. And as crass as this sounds, the male, do you want to have sex with a mother type figure? No, you don't. And, the mother figure, do you want to have sex with the younger male? No, you don't. So that's why the intimacy's gone out the door. And look, it's confronting, but when you can see the pattern for what it is, you can then begin recognizing, and look, that'll be a podcast for another day as to what to do with that. So I want to go to another pattern that I see, and we're going to talk about the male. And look, it can be the female at times, but often this is, let's use the example of the male. So the male, he's in the one-up boundaryless. So meaning there's a bit of grandiosity, I'm better than you, I know better. So it's quite controlling, criticising, can be attacking. I know best. Often you take on a lot of the decisions. You dismiss your partner's perspective to the point where you're actually not really interested. You can be intimidating, overpowering. You can be a bully. You do treat the partner as though you are not equals. And it's very painful for the partner on the receiving end of this. So for this example that I'm using, we're talking about the female, and she can be feeling like she just wants to please. She just wants to keep the peace. She keeps it all inside, but she does ruminate. She overthinks. It affects her very deeply because hasn't got the courage to be able to speak any of this out. She can agree, like yes, 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 but inside it's no, no, no. She's trying not to upset him, and she's looking for approval. And a big thing is she's losing her voice in the relationship, meaning she doesn't speak up. Again, these are not necessarily very conscious choices, but by the time you come in and see me, there's a real, again, a disempowerment. They're not equals. So you got the one up, you got the one down. And again, old roles of survival, which came from childhood, and you're recreating it in this adult relationship. And look, I was the one down, and I was the pleaser, the peacemaker, and I was also the lost child. So I played that role absolutely beautifully until I began to wake up and realize that actually I want equality. I want to be equals. And so it's starting to find your voice. And sometimes when this pattern's really strong, you do need a third person. You need the support to be able to maneuver through this. Because the one who's in the one up, so this example I'm using the male, he's in the one up, he's controlling, he's conflict, and the female is in the one down. It's almost like we need the mighty to mellow, that one up, and we need the one down. We want that one to sort of stand up and find her voice, because eventually this relationship will not last if you've got this dynamic. So look, I hope those examples are helpful, but look, let's bring it all together. It's not all doom and gloom. It really isn't. A lot of this is unconscious patterns. But if you are in a relationship where you are arguing, where you're disagreeing, where you're not team players, perhaps you're disagreeing about the finances, or about your intimacy, about parenting, or about all of it, and you are not feeling like an equal, I do want to talk about the one who's the one up and grandiosity is in that control. The issue with that is it's not an uncomfortable feeling. In fact, you can get a bit of a kick out of it. It's almost empowering, but it's not. In that it's a bit like a rebel teenager going off and doing rebellish things as a teenager. They know they're not meant to be, but they do it anyway, and it gives you a bit of a kick. And that is an issue with the one up, who sits up in that position. So the question, I suppose, is do I really love my partner? You can love your partner and still have these emotional wounds. So I think the deeper question is, am I relating to my partner who's standing in front of me from my old wounds, from my roles, from my survival strategies? Is it influencing how I experience them? You're the only one who can answer that question. I'm constantly checking in with myself. Am I in my adapted child? Because I know when I'm in her and when I'm sort of acting out and behaving, because I want to live in my adult, in my wise adult. So when we can begin recognizing these patterns, we then have the opportunity to step out of these patterns. But until that time, we're not going to know. So instead of, say, the mother role in the teenage, or the father in the teenage, or like on one of my number one on Google, I think, is Are You Living with a Manchild? It's learning how to meet each other as two equals. That's the key for all of this. And awareness is where that change begins, because it's quite confronting when you recognize, oh, I do behave a bit childlike. Great, we've got something to work with. Or recognize we're not equals. I'm always bossing my partner around, and I am more grander than them, and I know best. And the thing is, the grandiosity know that they're doing it, and also the one down knows, oh, it's I really want to go, actually I don't want to go and have Thai, but you're agreeing to go and have Chinese to just please your partner. Look, that's a bit of a lame example, but I think you're getting the idea. Look, I really hope this has sort of maybe planted some seeds in you and made you perhaps question, oh, why do we keep arguing? Perhaps you're both in your adapted child, in your different roles that you've taken on. And it becomes really hard to change that patterning. So work with someone, work with me, find somebody else, and unravel the patterns. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe, please review, share it with someone who could benefit. And if you'd like more relationship resources, I go onto my website. There's a lot on there, powerofchange.com.au. It's all there for you to check it out. Love to hear comments though, and I will keep bringing these podcasts to you. So until next time, I'm Helen Harrison, and I'm helping relationships thrive, one couple at a time.